This may or may not go anywhere, but just in case there's more stories that happen to come out, the world should hear these. So you were just saying that that people didn't realize that it really the how part. Who came up with being with?
That's, well, actually, that's, Lauren and I argue about this all the time. I said, I'm the one that came up with these. And he goes, no, I think I said it. You know, I don't know. No, but it actually is, it's between Lauren and me. Most of the stuff comes when Lauren and I talk a lot. And he was my way of getting feedback and keeping me in line. And every time he sees me, he always do this thing about, uh, I'm glad you said, because you made my career, because I made Soteria happen.
Yeah.
He couldn't, that's what made the research happen, which makes his career. And that's, I never thought of it until I said, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, but he's the one that, in order to, you think about Soteria breaking a lot of rules and boundaries and stuff. And Lauren is the one who keeps pushing me out. For example, Soteria, one of my things with it, there was 3 rules that were always at Soteria from beginning to end.
Okay.
Rules are an important thing, and how you use rules is critical to survival in terms of process. And the 3 rules are: no illegal drugs at the house. So that's, people, we drink alcohol is not illegal. So if you're an adult, you could drink alcohol, even though it never happened.
Wow.
But it did
Except when
happen.
he came by.
That's what I mean by pushing the boundaries. Coming today with a gallon of cheap wine, that's Lauren. Um, the other rule is no violence. What is violence? Me hollering at, screaming at somebody, it could be turned. But the and the fourth one, no sex between staff and resident. Those are the 3 rules. And Lauren would constantly say, "Why do you need the 3 rules?" That's just he's always telling me, And so, I mean, of course, I'm having to run this thing in Santa Clara County with the mental health system to survive. Of course, there's limits to what I can do, but he was just constantly pushing, keeping me doing things that made it different. So in that sense, it was real helpful to me, because it gave me the sort of
The sounding board.
okay that I could be radical in many ways and still be. And Lauren's a psychiatrist. Lauren's the chief of studies at schizophrenia at the NIMH. He's somebody, just not anybody. He's,
Right.
so
He was wait. This thing that you just said,
so
he was the head of the schizophrenia division
you figured he's the #1 in the nation for
at
this.
NIMH at the
Yeah.
time when it started.
So I mean, he's not just anybody. And so, and he's also the founding editor of Schizophrenia Bulletin. And the first 10 years of Schizophrenia Bulletin was Lauren Moser. So you're talking about, and that's the journal from the federal government. That so you this is the character in my left ear telling me, "You sure you can't do something more radical?" This is.
So it sounds like he was your sounding board, but he was also the person who was like, you're doing good, and you can even question what you're doing and maybe go a little further.
He was my biggest fan. It's not like he was saying that, but he was always doing, always pushing me to the more radical end.
Wow.
Process.
But it also sounds, I mean, I have people like that in my life that I feel like if I go too far, I know they'll let me know. So like
that, that was an issue with Lauren, and because I, I, I had, I knew pretty much everybody in the mental health system, so I knew how far I could go or not go, and but I did push. I pushed the envelope way big, and it's because of my connection with the mental health system locally. I worked with all the people in control of the mental health system in the state hospital. All those, excuse me, all the people in the mental health system used to work for the state hospital.
oh
And I had a big role there. So I knew all these people personally. So I had, like when we first got licensing, I was able to make our stuff, licensing the process dramatically different than other treatment models and stuff in the county, because I explained that we're bringing money in the county from the federal government. We were different, and we research and required certain kind of parameters that we didn't have the control of. And because the person in charge of that was my friend at the state, that we'd done a lot of things together in the state hospital, and she was willing to, the way we did our charting, and she was willing to give up a whole lot of things that we could do at Superior that other places couldn't do because of
so
that.
so is
So
it
I
really
had a
about
lot of room to move. So, but Lauren kept me in some way balanced.
uh-huh.
So it wasn't, it's not like Lauren was doing something that negative or made it bad for me. He was doing something I wanted. Because,
Sounded like he really supported you.
yeah, oh, yes, he did. I mean, that I can, way more than Alma, and Alma was a really touchy thing for me, because this woman that was so powerful for that first 3 months at Soteria suddenly wasn't the same person after
Something happened for her.
her kids died. If she was not, and there's no way. I mean, I can't blame her, because I tried to put myself in that. If my kids, I don't know I don't know how to do that. So, but her thing of not she was not trying to control, not trying to control. She let me do whatever I wanted to do.
Okay. But but
Even though she
Lauren was more
that
actively
yeah,
involved in
by not
supporting.
but not doing the but not by not getting in my way was a very powerful thing.
So you credit her with that by trusting you enough
Yes,
to give you
that
space to do it.
when I say it takes a lot of it, I could do whatever I pretty much wanted in that as a director, and so and my way of being with people is allowing people to be who they are within that context, and I could do that, you know. So in a way, because I'm the type of person that I'm director. I don't need to be telling people what to do. And outside, I the way we set up, the way we hired people, the way we set it up, I think was probably the best thing. The staff told me directly they trust me. What I do, and so when we opened up, a position came up, then we started that we always going to have male and females balanced.
Okay.
That was a given. And it was never the issue of males having it better off females, because we were deliberate at making that balance. We'd have a male on and a female on, so that always balanced it. Everybody got paid the same, and their raises happened to do over time as they worked. So there was no issue of female pay and male pay being different. That was all balanced.
Cool.
And so when we started how we're going to hire, when we started to talk about hiring, they said, well, we had the first women we hired after I became director. It was like 50 applicants.
Wow.
And we were we were thinking about, we wanted people to be known by the residents, the staff we hired to have the input, how you're going to do that with 50 people. So what they told me and what we agreed was that they trust me to go through the 50 people and weed out the 10 to 15 people at most. And the issue was, we trust you that you will,
To make that
and
first
that
cut.
15 people, they had to meet everybody in the staff, and then we had the way it worked. We had a meeting. The whole house would have a meeting and talk about the 15 and decide who's most. And it usually came down to 2 people at most. And then here's where the important piece comes. The person we hired before I became director was the reason why the chaos what I was talking about that happened was over that process.
Oh.
To avoid that process, they agreed that the last 2, or there's any question, that I would have to make the decision, and it would not be at that meeting. It would be the next day. I would tell them the next day. That was the agreed process. And that's the way it happened the rest of the point.
So you're saying, Voice, that you got 50 applicants in the beginning, like that, for new openings. You made the first cut, got it down to 10 or 15 people, and then those people would come in and
everybody would have
everybody, staff and residents.
Everybody would have input in that process. It's not like I went out and did it. So the feeling, they would always say, yeah, we picked, even though they know that I actually picked them.
But they got it down to 2.
They picked them, yeah. And the difference between that process and the other process, when the staff gets in trouble, the people felt that I bought this, I had input, so they were more willing to be tolerant, to get 2 people, because people felt like they hired folks, even though I'm technically
right.
It takes it on. The other thing, it takes out the conflict between the people who wanted this one and that one. There's no conflict because I made a decision, so it takes that part of it out, that conflict, because that was the conflict that caused the crisis before. The 2 groups separated. One of this group wanted this one, this group wanted the other. And this group did something weird to get the person they wanted hired. So from that point on, this group wouldn't talk to that group. And the one group over the weekend, they separated. That's where the program almost failed, because that became so powerful. And it wound up that this group went to Alma. This said, when Alma, before I was director, she was the director, she said, they told her, if you don't fire him, we're all quitting.
Wow.
And so Alma fired him. And from that point, Alma was mad at this. It became crisis. That's what I had to overcome to make sure that dynamic didn't happen anymore. That it comes out of a vacuum of not having some kind of authority, some way to mitigate it.
So it was important. You feel like it was important that that exercising your authority in as democratic a way possible, but still.
But you got input of everybody, so you're not making this.
Not being authoritarian, but you're not giving up power.
The rest of the Soteria time there was never a conflict when I came back with the decision. They never had not once.
So there was something you said about like the void.
And they all of power. They were the ones that made the decision. So, I mean, so it solved our problem in terms of hiring.
And so I'm very impressed, and I think it makes it sounds really important that the residents were as much a part of that decision as staff.
Everybody was at that meeting, and they had everybody had their input. Everybody had said what they wanted to say, so it was all open. Everybody, all that information was there. And those meetings were attended by not only the residents at the time, but some of the extras and they would be there.
Oh, wow.
Some of the broader community had input in that process.
Wow.
So, it's, well, so but when I mean by saying that input, how input becomes critical in the feeling for people to feel like they are part of a process is important. I didn't just go out and make a decision about, well, this person agreed because and then come back and make a decision and they don't have input. That's what happened before. The way it happened before, it's really too complicated to go in now. There was one of the male staff who was the first person hired when Alma wasn't there a lot, so sort of made his thought in his head somewhere he was the most important. He was in charge, so he would. But everybody, no one else agreed with it, and so, but because of that conflict, you have a splitting of the people
Of the staff.
and the residents got into the process. They some of them sided too, which which is logical. And so by then at some point I become director, and by then they had fired this person, and within 6 months almost everybody in the other group had left.
Oh, how interesting. So there was really a complete turnaround anyway.
Yes, you could see it. Even though they got what they wanted, they still left.
Oh,
They
how interesting.
not at time over different periods of time, and and they would say for different reasons, but that's what happened. The reality.
What was the staff turnaround? Like turnover?
And when they compared the staff turnover versus, because the staff are studied too, as well as the first staff, as well as the staff at the hospital. So they compared the different personalities and all that kind of stuff. We took a whole day of tests,
Wow.
but what in terms of the final study showed that people at Ceteria worked longer than the hospital.
They stayed longer. The staff stayed longer.
Staff, right. So it's just contrary, because if you look at these other rehab residential places, it's totally the opposite.
Yeah. Well, often also because of paying, the state hospital is usually considered.
This was county hospital that compared it with, yeah.
So I don't know what the pay scale is, but usually the hospital has deeper pockets, pays better. So even though it's a really harsh environment.
The hospital had more money, they were paid better. Yeah, it was an issue of pay. It was issues that the working different. And from my experience, at Ceteria staff, you have more power in terms of your the environment than a person working in the hospital.
Right. Agency.
Nursing, a psychiatrist is your boss. And you got a lot of more boss. You got this stratification of authority above you.
Yeah.
There's a very thin stratification.
So real hierarchical versus very democratic and agency.
It's very different than the hospital system. The staff felt like they had more input than a nurse or one of the other people working in the hospital.
Oh boy. All right. I am going to stop this recording and then we'll just chat a little bit more.